The sunlight poured in through the floor-to-ceiling window of the study, casting dappled shadows on the floor. I sat on the armchair in front of the window, staring at the yellowed photo in my hand. In the photo, the blonde Sophie was smiling sweetly at the camera, just as she did when we first met. However, at this moment, I can no longer feel the warmth of the past from this photo. My name is Ethan Montague. I'm a 45-year-old accountant working in a CPA firm. 15 years ago, I married Sophie and started a new chapter in my life with high hopes. We thought we had each other for life, but that was not to be. Sophie was originally my junior in college because of a public service activity organized by the school to get acquainted. At that time, she was like a beam of bright sunshine, shining into my gray and depressing life. I fell in love with her at first sight, and in order to pursue her, I broke my introverted and sensitive character and became cheerful and lively. When she shyly agreed to be my girlfriend, I felt like the happiest person in the world. After graduating from college, we entered the marriage hall hand in hand. When I think back to the church, Sophie came to me in a white wedding gown, and my eyes were blurred with tears of happiness. I held her hand tightly and swore in front of God that I would love her forever, regardless of poverty or wealth, sickness or health. At that moment, I was filled with longing for a better future. After we got married, I worked hard to give Sophie and our future children a warm home. We moved into a cozy house in the outskirts of the city and started a sweet world for two. Every day when I came home from work, seeing the delicious dinner Sophie prepared for me, my tired body and mind were comforted. On weekends, we would cuddle up on the sofa and watch an old movie, or walk hand in hand in the park. At that time, I was convinced that as long as we love each other, life is a picture that never fades. However, the fairy tale had to end one day. I don't know when, but Sophie gradually changed. She began to complain about my old-fashioned and uninterested, complaining all day long about the dullness of life. I tried to change, but my introverted personality always bound me. I'm not good at words, I don't know how to be romantic, and it's hard for me to even say, "I love you." Gradually, Sophie stopped talking to me, and the invisible gap between us grew wider and wider. The other day, I accidentally bumped into Sophie chatting with my longtime friend Marcus, my college friend and now a successful businessman, at a corner cafe. He is handsome and successful, and I have always admired him. But that day, as I watched him and Sophie chatting and laughing, with an ambiguous glint in their eyes, an inexplicable uneasiness arose in my heart. When Sophie got home, I asked about Marcus in passing, but she was impatient. "What's the matter with you? Can't you let me have friends?" Sophie said coldly, with a bored look in her eyes. I was at a loss for words. I didn't know how to respond. Was Marcus more than a friend to her? That night, I tossed and turned and found it hard to sleep. My mind repeatedly replayed the picture of Sophie and Marcus talking happily, and my nose gradually turned sour. Over the years, what have I done wrong to make my wife treat me so coldly? Sophie, where has your heart drifted to? Where did the breakdown of our marriage begin? Outside the window, night rain and thunder. I looked at Sophie's photo on my bed, and tears slipped down my face. I don't want to believe that we used to love each other so much, but now we have come to this point. Could it be that our marriage was really just a fleeting dream? I wiped away my tears and made up my mind. No matter what, I have to find out the truth. Sophie, if you really betrayed me in our marriage, I won't let you off easily. Tomorrow morning, I will go to Marcus to find out the truth. The next day, I met Marcus at a cafe near the office. He looked elegant and confident as always. I took a deep breath and got straight to the point. "Marcus, I want to ask you something about Sophie." Marcus raised an eyebrow, a hint of playfulness in his smile. "Ethan, what's wrong with you? Why are you asking about Sophie all of a sudden?" I stared him in the eye and said, word for word, "I overheard you two together, and your relationship seemed unusual. As Sophie's husband, I have a right to know the truth." Marcus' face changed, then regained his composure. "Ethan, you're overthinking this. Sophie and I are just friends. We just talk once in a while. It's not very nice of you to doubt your wife like that, is it?" I sneered, pulled a stack of photos out of my briefcase, and slammed them down on the table. "Just friends? That's not what these pictures say." You're all over each other at the cafe, and you're sending sweet messages. You expect me to believe that this is just a friendship? Marcus blanched and hastened to defend himself. Ethan, it's not what you think. There's really nothing between Sophie and I. Those text messages were just harmless jokes. As for the cafe, we just get together once in a while to catch up, that's all. I was furious and slammed my fist on the table. Don't lie. If it's like you said, why are you seeing each other behind my back? Why is Sophie getting so cold to me lately? I'm warning you, stay away from my wife, or I won't be polite. Marcus raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. Okay, Ethan, I was wrong. I shouldn't have thrown myself at Sophie, and I shouldn't have sent those inappropriate texts. I promise you, from now on, I will stay out of your lives. Sophie is your wife, and I won't step out of line. I stared Marcus dead in the eye, trying to find a flaw in his face, but he seemed sincere and genuine. My anger subsided and was replaced by a deep exhaustion. I hope you're telling the truth. I don't want to hurt you, Marcus, but I can't stand by and watch my marriage fall apart. Would you please stay away from Sophie? Marcus nodded and patted me on the shoulder. Don't worry, Ethan. Don't worry, Ethan. I'll always be your friend, and I won't do anything wrong. You go back and talk to Sophie. I'm sure you'll be able to work things out. I wish you all the best. I forced a smile and said goodbye to Marcus. Walking out of the cafe, I breathed a long sigh of relief, but my mood was not the least bit relaxed. I had a vague feeling that things were not that simple. Marcus' words sounded reasonable, but my intuition told me that he was lying. I wandered aimlessly through the streets, my thoughts in disarray. Suddenly, a familiar figure caught my eye. It was Audrey, Marcus' wife, who was in front of a clothing store, admiring the new dresses in the window. She seemed to have become more elegant and charming after years of absence. I walked over to him in a haunted manner and called out softly, "Audrey?" Audrey looked back, her eyes widening in surprise. "Ethan, is it really you? It's been so long." She hugged me warmly, her soft blonde hair sweeping across my cheeks and a faint scent of perfume entering my nostrils. I was a bit overwhelmed and took 2 steps back. "Yeah, it's been a while. How have you been?" "Everything's fine. By the way, how's Sophie doing? I heard from Marcus that your relationship is stable." Audrey smiled, her eyes clear and bright. My heart clenched violently. If what Audrey said was true, then why was Marcus lying to me? What was he hiding? My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. "Yeah, we've been good," I said, pretending to be relaxed, but in my heart, I was getting more and more uneasy. "Right, I've got some things to do, so I'll be going now. I'll talk to you some other time." I said goodbye to Audrey and walked away. I had to find Sophie as soon as possible and find out what was going on. I couldn't be kept in the dark any longer. I wanted to know the truth, even if it was brutal. When I got home, I saw Sophie sitting on the couch, staring out the window. When she heard the door open, she looked back with a flash of panic on her face. "You're back? Why are you so early today?" I took a deep breath and looked her straight in the eye. "There's something I want to ask you. About you and Marcus." Sophie's face instantly turned white. She averted her gaze and said softly, "I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus and I are just friends. What's going on?" "Really? But you've been so close lately, texting each other a lot. Is that what normal friends do?" I tried to keep my emotions in check, but my tone was shaking. "Sophie, please tell me the truth. Are you betraying our marriage?" Sophie stood up violently, her face flushed red. "Ethan, how could you doubt me like that? I've always been loyal to you. I've never done anything wrong. Yes, I've gotten close to Marcus, but that's just because I've been so lonely and depressed at home. You're too busy working to care about my feelings. I needed someone to talk to, someone to comfort me, and Marcus just happened to be there, that's all." Tears blurred my eyes. I felt a piercing sadness. It turned out that our marriage has long been full of holes, but I turned a blind eye. I ignored my wife's feelings. I pushed her to other men. But even so, I cannot forgive her betrayal. "So, you're having an affair to get back at me for being so cold?" "Sophie, marriage is never a game of will and won't. We made a vow to stay together for the rest of our lives. But now, You've let marriage degenerate into this. I'm really disappointed in you. Sophie choked back tears. Ethan, I know it's wrong. Forgive me. Okay? I promise I won't see Marcus again, and I'll be a good wife. Give me a chance, okay? I closed my eyes and shook my head bitterly. No, Sophie, we were both wrong. We turned our marriage into a disaster. Maybe we both need to calm down and figure out where we want to go from here. I'll sleep in the guest room, so please don't bother me until I figure it out. After saying that, I walked into the guest room without looking back and closed the door heavily. Outside the door, Sophie's cries of grief and despair pierced my heart. I collapsed on the bed, tears pouring out like a dike. Is this the end of our marriage? 15 years of love, just like this to go up in flames? Outside the window, the rain was pouring down and the thunder was loud. My heart is also experiencing an unprecedented storm. I don't know what kind of tomorrow awaits me. At this moment, I just want to hide in the darkness to escape from this cruel reality. Sophie, what should I do with you? Do we have a future? I laughed bitterly, life, really full of irony. Once I thought, as long as you give your heart, love can last forever. But now I realize that marriage is never a vow. A promise can be maintained. It requires both parties to operate with heart, with tolerance and care. And I, but ignored this point. Sophie, maybe we're all at fault. But I swear, I'll get to the bottom of it and blow the lid off all these lies. No matter how this ends, I'm going to face the truth and bring this farce to a close. Tears blurred my eyes, and I felt an unprecedented fatigue. Outside the window, torrential rain and thunder, as if echoing the despair in my heart. Sophie, our love, so annihilated in the wind and rain, where will the truth lead me? I don't know, and I have no way of knowing. The only thing I can do is to clench my fists and welcome the unknown tomorrow. I tossed and turned alone in the guest room, sleepless all night. Outside the window, the rainstorm subsided, and the light of dawn shone through the curtains and into the dimly lit room. I got up to wash up, but my mood was as heavy as lead. I knew that today would be the day that my relationship with Sophie would come to an end. I walked into the kitchen where Sophie was preparing breakfast. When she saw me come in, a flicker of panic and guilt crossed her face. Ethan, She was hesitant to say anything, and her eyes were slightly red. I took a deep breath and pushed down the ache in my heart. We need to talk. About our marriage, about you and Marcus. Sophie dropped her eyes, her voice a whisper. Ethan, I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have betrayed you, betrayed our marriage. But I really feel so lonely and helpless. You're always busy, always away. I needed care and attention, and Marcus' presence made me feel warmer than I'd ever felt before. But I swear, nothing happened between me and him. I sneered, my eyes cold. It didn't happen? Then what about those texts? Those intimate words, those sweet words, were they all my mistake? Sophie choked back tears. It was just a moment of confusion, a moment of delusion. I never stepped out of line. I never really cheated on you. Ethan, you're the one I love. Please give me another chance, okay? I closed my eyes, and my heart was pounding. Sophie's words like a sharp dagger in my heart. How I wish I could believe her. How I wish there was still room for us to make amends. But reason tells me that things are not that simple. Sophie, you know that marriage requires absolute fidelity and trust. But what you've done has completely destroyed my trust in you. Maybe you didn't cheat physically, but you have completely betrayed our marriage spiritually. I gave you all my heart, but you turned a blind eye, turned into the arms of other men. Such feelings, what is the meaning? Sophie grabbed my hand in despair and sobbed uncontrollably. No, Ethan, don't say that. I know I've hurt you. I've failed you. But I swear, from now on, I'll never see Marcus again. I'll never do anything wrong. I'll try to make amends. I'll try to rebuild our relationship. Please, give me another chance. I shake my head feebly and pull my hand away from Sophie's palm. No, Sophie, maybe it's too late. We destroyed this marriage with our own hands. The vows, the promises, you've trampled on them. There's no more trust between us. Without trust, how far can a marriage go? I stood up, my eyes firm and sad. Sophie, maybe we both need to calm down. In the meantime, I'll move somewhere else. I need time to think about our future. I want you to do some soul searching and figure out what kind of life you want. When I figure it out, I'll come back to you. Until then, please don't bother me." After that, I walked out of the house without looking back. Behind me, Sophie's cries echoed for a long time, piercing my eardrums. I clenched my fists and walked quickly towards the unknown. Tears were welling up in my eyes, but I couldn't hold them back. "Ethan Montague, you can't be weak. You can't back down. You have to face the reality, the harsh truth." I was wandering aimlessly in the city with a lot of thoughts. Pedestrians on the road were all in a hurry, and no one noticed a middle-aged man with a haggard face who was experiencing the greatest pain in his life. I looked up to the sky, a few rays of sunshine through the heavy clouds sprinkled to the earth. I laughed bitterly. Even God is laughing at my misfortune? I don't know how long I walked. I came to a remote neighborhood. This place was out of place with the hustle and bustle of the city, with dilapidated buildings and dirty streets, all revealing an air of decadence. I found a small hotel and got a room. The room smelled of mold. The wallpaper on the wall had peeled off, and the air was filled with an unspeakable smell. But I had no time to care about this, and threw myself heavily on the bed and closed my eyes. Sophie's face came to mind. Once upon a time, every time I saw her, I would feel immense happiness and fulfillment. But now, when I see her, I only feel endless pain and despair. We used to love each other so much, and we made a promise to each other. But the reality just shattered our vows. "Sophie, Sophie, why are you doing this to me? Is this the end of our love?" Tears, I don't know when they have flooded. I cried loudly, sobbing uncontrollably. 15 years of love, 15 years of dedication. Just like that, it's all gone down the drain. I hate Sophie's deception, I hate Marcus' betrayal, and I hate my own cowardice. Perhaps I have to bear all the bitter fruits by myself. I don't know how long I cried, but I finally fell into a deep sleep. In my sleep, I went back to the campus where I first met Sophie. Golden sunshine, green trees, everything was so beautiful. Sophie walked towards me, smiling like a flower. But when I reached out to touch her, her figure gradually disappeared, turned into a wisp of smoke and dissipated in the air. I shouted her name, hissed, but only the wind whistled in my ears. I woke up with a start, my heart like a knife. It turns out, the good old days have become a bubble. I spent the next few days in a state of confusion. I took a long vacation, locked myself up in a hotel, didn't eat, didn't drink, didn't care. I didn't even dare to look in the mirror for fear of seeing my haggard face. My coworkers called and asked me how I was doing. I was vague and perfunctory. I know I can't go down like this, but I really do not know how to get out of this quagmire. Late one night, I was sitting alone in my room. Suddenly, there was a heavy knock on the door. I was startled, thinking it was Sophie, but when I opened the door, it was Audrey, Marcus' wife. But when I opened the door, it was Audrey, Marcus's wife, who rushed into the room with an anxious look on her face and slapped me across the face without saying a word. "Ethan Montague, are you a man? Do you let yourself go down like this? Do you realize that Sophie has been looking for you for days and is going crazy?" Audrey scolded me angrily, tears welling up in her eyes. I looked at Audrey blankly, not saying a word. Sophie was looking for me? She has the nerve to come to me? After what she did? I've heard it all from Sophie. My God, how could you doubt her like that? She's your wife. She's always loved you. She and Marcus are just friends. She's never crossed the line. Yes, she got closer to him, but only because you never cared about her, not about her feelings. You shut yourself up in here and feel sorry for yourself, and that's not going to solve anything? I laughed bitterly and sat down on the bed. Audrey, it's not as simple as you think. I saw Sophie and Marcus together. They were eye to eye, like a couple of lovers. Sophie hid from me, and he frequent contact. Send him those ambiguous text messages. Is this all my fault? Audrey sighed and sat down beside me. Ethan, maybe Sophie didn't do the right thing. She shouldn't have kept Marcus from you, and she shouldn't have gotten so close to him. But have you thought about why she did it? It's because she's so lonely and depressed in this marriage. You haven't communicated with each other for a long time. You don't know what's going on in her heart, and Sophie needs care and attention, which you haven't been able to give her." I was silent. Audrey's words, like a hammer, knocked on my heart. Yes, for so many years, I put all my thoughts on the work, but ignored the wife around me. I thought as long as the hard work to make money, give her material satisfaction, she will feel happy. But I was wrong. I did not give her spiritual comfort, did not give her spiritual care. It was I who pushed her into the arms of another man. But what should I do? Can Sophie really forgive me? Is there any way to salvage our marriage? I asked in desperation, my eyes blurring with tears again. Audrey patted me on the shoulder and said, "Ethan, as long as you love each other, it's never too late. Go to her, talk to her, open up and be honest with her. Tell her how much you love her and how much you care about the marriage. I believe she will forgive you. After all, you've been together for so many years." I nodded my head silently, as if there was a ray of light in front of my eyes. Yes, Sophie and I have been in love for so many years, through so many storms. Our relationship won't be broken just like that. Perhaps, after this ordeal, we will be able to see each other clearly and see the true meaning of this relationship. Thank you, Audrey, for making me see myself clearly. I'm going to find Sophie, and I'm going to save our marriage," I said from the bottom of my heart as I held Audrey's hand. Audrey smiled and nodded, encouragement in her eyes. "Go ahead, Ethan. Remember that marriage is never about one person. It takes two people to make it work, to take care of it. I'm sure you'll get through this and be happy again." I took a deep breath and nodded my head. Yes, I'm going to Sophie to save our relationship. This time, I won't run away. I won't retreat. I'm going to face the reality, the problems in our marriage. I'm going to prove with my actions how much I love her and how much I care about this family. I walked out of the hotel, and the sky was clearing. A few rays of sunlight poured through the clouds. I greeted the sunlight with a smile, and hope was burning in my heart. "Sophie, wait for me. Sophie, wait for me. This time, I will love you and take good care of you. Our love will stand the test of time and be reborn." I was running, recklessly, in the direction of my home. The wind was whistling in my ears, and my lapel was wet with sweat. But I couldn't care less. All I wanted to do was to see Sophie and hold her in my arms. Our marriage may still have hope. Our relationship may still be glowing. "Sophie, I'm coming. This time, I won't let go. After all the years we've spent together, we can't just give up. Let's face the truth and mend our broken relationship. I believe that as long as we still love each other, there is no hurdle we can't cross." On the street, the sun was shining. An old couple walked past me, hand in hand, with happy smiles on their faces. I couldn't help but smile, as if I could see the future of Sophie and I. Yes, we can be like them, hand in hand until the end of our lives. Yes, we can be like them, hand in hand until old age, together with each other. I will spend my whole life to keep this promise. Sophie, give me another chance. Let's start a new chapter in our lives together. Our story is not over yet. Our love will eventually blossom into the most beautiful color. With great enthusiasm and hope, I ran all the way. Finally, I stood in front of my house, out of breath. With trembling hands, I knocked on the familiar door. To my surprise, Marcus answered the door. "What are you doing here?" My eyes widened in disbelief. A flash of embarrassment crossed Marcus' face, and he regained his composure. "Ethan, it's not what you think. I came to check on Sophie. She's been very unstable the last few days, and I'm worried she's going to do something stupid." I laughed and was furious. "It seems you two are so close that you go in and out of each other's houses. Where's Sophie? I want to see her." Marcus shook his head helplessly and sidestepped. "She's in the bedroom. You can go in. But I warn you, don't provoke her. She's very fragile right now." With a grunt, I pushed Marcus out of the way and walked straight to the bedroom. My heart was pounding in my chest and my palms were seeping with cold sweat. God knows, the moment I opened the door, I was terrified of seeing Sophie and Marcus hugging. However, when I opened the door, I saw Sophie's haggard face. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring blankly out the window, her eyes empty and desperate. When she heard the door open, she turned around and her expression changed from surprise to panic. "Ethan, you're back." "I," Sophie said incoherently, standing up and trying to approach me, but I coldly avoided her. "No need to explain, Sophie. It seems you and Marcus have been in love for a long time, and I'm just a pathetic fool for trying to save our marriage," I said bitterly, tears welling up in my eyes. Sophie blanched and shook her head in panic. "No, Ethan, listen to me. There's nothing going on between Marcus and I. Yes, I admit we've been getting closer lately, but that's just because I don't find comfort in you. Yes, I admit that we've gotten closer lately, but that's just because I don't find comfort in you, and Marcus just happened to come along and fill that void. But I swear, I've never changed my mind about you." I laughed and pointed to the door. "Come on, you've gotten so close. He comes and goes as he pleases. What do I expect? Sophie, admit it. You betrayed our marriage a long time ago. I'm just a passerby in your life, a joke?" Sophie was sobbing and looking at me pleadingly. "No, Ethan, please believe me. I know I've hurt you and betrayed your trust, but I swear, from now on, I'll never see Marcus again, and I'll never hurt you again. Give me a chance, okay?" I closed my eyes and shook my head bitterly. "No, Sophie, it's too late. There's no more trust between us. How can a marriage go on without trust? Maybe we should both calm down and think about the future of this relationship." With that, I turned and left, unable to stand Sophie's pleas and tears any longer. I stormed out of the house and slammed Marcus out of the way. On the street, pedestrians were coming and going, but I felt incredibly lonely and confused. Where do I go from here? Is there a future for Sophie and me? I spent the next few days in a state of confusion. I took a long vacation from work and locked myself up in a rented room all day, not eating or drinking, ignoring. Colleagues learned of the news of my marital breakdown, have called to express their condolences, but I cannot lift a single strength, even answer the phone, feel a lot of pain. I feel like I am dying little by little. Even breathing has become a burden. The company's performance began to plummet. Customers complained about my perfunctory and irresponsible. The boss several times to talk to me. The tone is more and more harsh. But I do not care about work. All I know is to drown my sorrows in alcohol, drunkenness, and dreaming of death. A few times, I even thought of death, wanting to be relieved and escape from the suffering of this world. But every time I had the courage to pick up the razor blade, Sophie's beautiful face and all the things we had done would always come back to my mind. I knew I couldn't give up so easily. Even if there was only one chance in a million, I had to keep going. Thus, I suffered in pain and despair. Until one day, Audrey came and gave me a ray of hope. "Ethan, how long are you going to keep giving yourself up like this? Do you have any idea how miserable and desperate Sophie is? She spends her days in tears, wishing she could jump into Lake Michigan and be done with her life." Audrey's eyes were red and she sounded agitated. I was stunned, in disbelief. "But isn't Sophie with Marcus? Aren't they in love?" I asked bitterly, my tone full of self-deprecation. Audrey stomped her feet in anger. "You idiot. Can't you see that Sophie doesn't love Marcus at all? It's always you she loves. She's only close to Marcus because you're cold and neglectful. She needed a listener, a comforter, and Marcus was there when she was most vulnerable. But her heart never left you." I listened in disbelief, and a tear slipped down my cheek. But I saw them together. They were so close. Audrey sighed and said in a serious tone, "Ethan, marriage is never about one person. It takes two people to make it work, to take care of it together. Yes, Sophie did wrong. She should not go behind your back and Marcus. But what about you? Have you ever thought that it's your neglect that makes her go further and further away? It's been so long since you've communicated that you don't know what's going on inside her head. And Sophie needs you, Ethan. She needs you to care for her. She needs you to love her. And she needs you to tell her that she needs to know what's going on. She needs you to tell her how much she means to you." I was in tears, trembling. Audrey's words, like a hammer, cracked the walls of my heart. Yes, all these years, I put all my thoughts on my career, but ignored my wife. I thought as long as the hard work to make money, give her material satisfaction, She will feel happy. But I was wrong. I did not give her spiritual comfort, did not give her spiritual care. It was I who pushed her towards Marcus. When I thought of this, I couldn't control my emotions any longer and cried loudly. How stupid and selfish I was. I said I loved her, but in the end I hurt her and pushed her farther and farther away. Sophie, my dear Sophie, you must hate me so much? You must never want to see me again? Audrey tapped me on the shoulder and gave me an encouraging look. Ethan, it's not too late for that. Go to Sophie, apologize and tell her how much you love her. As long as you love each other, there's nothing you can't overcome. Trust me, she'll forgive you. I wiped away my tears and nodded heavily. Yes, I'm going to Sophie to save our marriage. This time, I can't hold back, I can't run away. I have to face the reality, face the problems in our relationship. I want to prove with actions, I care about this family, I care about her. Sophie, wait for me. This time, I won't let go. I rushed out the door and ran down the street. As the evening drew on, the streetlights came on. I ran tirelessly, just to see the woman I love. Sophie, you must wait for me. This time, I will hold you tight and never let you go. The night was dark and starry. I stopped in front of Sophie's house, breathing heavily. The house was pitch black, with no light at all. My heart sank. Had she moved out? Was it too late? Just then, a light suddenly came on inside the house. I held my breath and carefully knocked on the door. After a while, the door opened and Sophie stood in the doorway, her eyes red and swollen, her face haggard. When she saw me, she first froze and then burst into tears. Ethan, you're back? I couldn't control myself any longer and took her in my arms. I'm sorry, Sophie. I'm sorry, Sophie. I'm sorry I was a fool. I was selfish. I was weak. I ignored your feelings and hurt you. But I swear, I never stopped loving you. You're all I have. I can't live without you. Sophie, please forgive me and give me a chance to start over, okay? Sophie sobbed uncontrollably and wrapped her arms around my neck. Ethan, I'm at fault. I shouldn't have betrayed you. I shouldn't have broken your heart. I shouldn't have betrayed you. I shouldn't have broken your heart. Marcus means nothing to me. The person I love is always you. Forgive me, okay? Let's start over, okay? I nodded my head with tears in my eyes and kissed Sophie deeply on the lips. At this moment, all the misunderstandings, all the grudges, all dissipated. I know we still have a long way to go. Wounds need time to heal. Trust needs time to rebuild. But as long as we still love each other, there is no difficulty that cannot be overcome. That night, like a couple in love for the first time, we had a long talk in the bedroom. I opened up to Sophie about the pain and suffering I had experienced over the years, and Sophie apologized to me, confessing her insecurities and stress. We both shed tears of remorse for each other, and we both made up our minds to weather the storms of life together. Outside the window, the moon was in the sky and the stars were shining brightly. I hugged Sophie tightly and murmured in her ear, "My dear, in the days to come, we will grow old together, okay? Whether poor or rich, sick or healthy, I will always love you, always take care of you." Sophie nodded happily and curled up into a ball in my arms. At this moment, I knew we were going to be okay. The first rays of the dawn sun poured through the curtains and into the bedroom. I slowly opened my eyes and felt the warmth of Sophie beside me. Looking at her quiet, sleeping face, my heart surged with an unprecedented happiness and satisfaction. Yes, after so many storms, we are finally back together. In the days to come, I must cherish and take care of this hard-earned happiness. Sophie woke up, her eyes gradually clearing. When she saw me, a happy smile spread across her face. "Good morning, darling. I thought last night was a dream." I kissed her tenderly on the forehead and took her in my arms. "No, it's not a dream. I am here and I will never leave. From now on, we will face everything in life together and never be apart." Sophie nodded emotionally, her eyes a little moist. I know that, like me, she is grateful for this lost happiness. We embraced each other quietly for a long time, without saying anything, but we felt the same as never before. Last night's long talk had opened our hearts and eliminated all our differences. We both realized our mistakes and made up our minds to correct them. As long as we walk hand in hand, there is no hurdle we cannot cross. In the days that followed, I began to try to fulfill my promise to Sophie. I applied to my company for a change of job and cut down on business trips and social functions. Every night, I would come home on time, have dinner with Sophie, and share the day's events. On weekends, we would go hiking together to breathe in the fresh air of nature. Sometimes, we would stay on the couch and watch an old movie together, reminiscing about the good old days. I began to learn to listen to Sophie's heart and pay attention to her joys and sorrows. Whenever she told me her worries, I would comfort her and support her. I am no longer the cold and mute husband, but have learned to express my love in my own way. I would send her flowers at the opening of her painting exhibition and prepare a surprise for her wedding anniversary. Seeing Sophie smile makes me feel that all the hard work I did before is worth it. Sophie is also trying to mend the rift between us. She started to share her inner thoughts with me and stopped burying her emotions in her heart. She is also learning to understand my busy schedule and no longer complains about my cold shoulder. She would often prepare surprise lunches for me and bring me warmth when I was working late at night. Looking at her thoughtfulness, my heart is full of touching and guilt. I secretly vowed that I would make it up to her and make her the happiest woman in the world. We came to an understanding about Marcus and Sophie, who promised me to cut off all contact with him. Marcus understood and withdrew from our lives. I know that his sudden appearance was a catalyst in our marriage. He made us see each other's problems clearly, and he made us realize the importance of each other. Perhaps I should thank him for allowing me to embrace the love of my life again. Audrey became our best friend. She often came to our home and gave us tips on how to run our marriage. With her encouragement, Sophie and I began to learn to open up and be honest with each other. We made a pact to be each other's strongest supporters, and no matter what happened, we would stand by each other's side and offer support and encouragement. I know that with friends like Audrey, our relationship path will become more and more stable. Day by day, Sophie and I are slowly warming up to each other. We have regained the tacit understanding and enthusiasm, and life is full of laughter again. Every morning when I wake up and see the smiling face of the person next to my pillow, I feel incredibly happy and satisfied. I know this is the life I once dreamed of. Sophie is my world. With her, I am complete. In the blink of an eye, our 15th wedding anniversary arrived. On this day, I carefully prepared a surprise. I took Sophie to revisit the places where we met and fell in love. The college campus, the movie theater where we had our first date, the beach where we proposed. All the way, full of sweet memories. We hold hands and talk about all these years. The first thing you need to do is to get your hands on some of the most popular products and services in the world, and then you'll be able to get your hands on them. Finally, I took Sophie to the beach where I proposed. The sun was setting, the waves were lapping at the rocks, and everything was so peaceful and beautiful. I slowly got down on my knees and took out the ring I had been holding on to. Dear Sophie, 15 years ago, I proposed to you here and made a promise to be together for the rest of our lives. Over the years, we've weathered many storms and lost our way. But in the end, we still came together. Because we love each other so much, we are willing to give everything for this relationship. Sophie, will you continue to protect our marriage and accompany me through the rest of my life? Sophie was in tears, holding my hand tightly. I do, Ethan. I do, Ethan. And these years have made me realize how much you mean to me. I can't imagine living the rest of my life without you. I'm willing to continue to work with you and take care of our marriage until we grow old together. I kissed Sophie deeply, with tears streaming down my face. At this moment, all the pain was gone. I knew that no matter how many bumps in the road ahead, as long as we walked hand in hand, there was no difficulty that could not be overcome. Back home, we celebrated and thought about the future. Outside the window, the moon was shining brightly and the stars were shining brightly. I held Sophie's hand tightly and whispered in her ear, "My dear, every day in the future, we have to take care of this relationship. Let us be reborn in love, sublimated in love, hand in hand towards the highest level of life." Sophie happily snuggled in my arms and softly responded, "With you, I have the whole world. In the future, there are so many beautiful things waiting for us to open. No matter how rough the road ahead is, as long as we are together, nothing can bring us down. I kissed her forehead lovingly. Yes, our love, through the baptism of wind and rain, only more precious. For the rest of our lives, we will love each other, hand in hand. Our story will never end. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.